For today, I want to talk about lessons learned as a parent when I was introducing Chinese soups, foods, cuisines, teas, a little more of the herbal side to my children since they were very young. For me, it was a blend between some Western concepts, following the American Association of Pediatrics in when you can introduce foods, and a little bit of the Eastern side, where I'm using food as really a holistic approach to their well-being. My operating philosophy really is food is medicine, and this is the same theory and concept that I've used as a parent. I've got a guide for parents on introducing and making soups for their children. In TCM, the spleen is the root of digestion. The spleen's function is really to transform and transport our food and drink into usable energy. Children's digestive systems aren't fully mature until 2 to 3 years old. And this is because, one, their levels of digestive enzymes are actually lower than that of an adult. And two, they have less mature microbes in their digestive system. And this is why it takes time in their bellies and that digestive system to fully mature. Both our spleen and stomach do prefer the warmth and are easily damaged by the cold. And the flavor of sweet is what's associated with the spleen. And so knowing this about our spleen and stomach and the development of children's digestive system is where we can be very intentional in how we create soups, teas, congees, and food for our kids. So some lessons learned for me as a parent while I'm on this journey and making these for my children. The first is keeping it bland. This means I really steer away from salt, sugars, anything that's really processed, and use whole and natural foods, especially foods that tend to lean more on the sweeter side. And I'm not talking about like sugars, I'm talking about natural sugars such as sweet pumpkin, corn, potatoes, apples, pears, Chinese yam, rice, dried red dates, dried longan, anything like that are great introductory ingredients for our children's diets. The second is to use a scooper or a mesh strainer. And these are perfect for removing debris, fat, foam that come off the bones as you're boiling and blanching them. The third is to not use any soup thickeners. It's actually pretty common in some Chinese soups to use a cornstarch slurry to thicken the soup. And so for my kids, when they were really small as babies, I didn't use any soup thickeners, any cornstarch at this point. If you want to thicken the soup, you can always use eggs, beat up, and then drizzle it around. And those work best for like sweet and sour soup, egg drop soup, but something that's more Western feeling and less about that traditional Chinese soup. The fourth is about that age-old debate, skin or no skin. And again, it's completely up to you. Sometimes I'll keep the skin on because what that does is actually prevent that ingredient from disintegrating completely in the soup. This is perfect for things like snow pears, apples, pears, or any root and fruit that get really soft as a part of that boiling process. So I will keep the skin on if it's a longer boil, but if I'm talking quick boil soups or teas, I will remove the skins. This is just so that it's easier for them to gum and chew through. The next is to use a soup bag or larger tea bags to contain the ingredients. This is a must use, especially if you're doing fish soups. What this does is really contain all the bones and all the pieces that break down as a part of the boiling process. I will also use soup bags for really small ingredients just so that I know where they are and they're all contained together. This makes cleanup so much easier, and the soup bags are recyclable and reusable. Next is about size of the ingredients. I will either go small or go big, not in between. Nothing that's a choking hazard. So the idea of it being really big is so that I can see them and fish them out, or that my child has to really chew it to make sure that they can eat it, or really small that they can swallow it when it's softened. This is really great for ingredients that become softer but not completely disintegrate, such as carrots and radishes. The next lesson learned is really around integrating stories, around creating a lifestyle around these soups, teas, and food. Really the concept that food is medicine and we are what we eat. And so I will tell stories to my kids around like the Chinese yam or something I know specific around, let's say, the different types of yams, right? And we'll play with them and experiment with all of them. And so just little ways to integrate how there's a love of food and a love of exploring food as part of growing up. Come with your own stories, your own lived experiences. For example, me and my experience about the little flies in watercress soup is so real because it still happens. These flies exist in watercress as part of nature. And so I'm struggling to remove these flies from my kids as well, and they see them. And so I'm just like, well, I ate them when I was a kid. It's extra protein, just drink it. And it's these memories and stories that really bring food to life. And finally, bring them into the cooking process. And so when they were old enough to be able to make Chinese soups, for example, even simple soups, I would get them involved. They would help me cut, they would help me clean, they would help drop the ingredients in, and to the point where they can actually now make their own soups, which I'm really proud of. For the full parent's guide on making Chinese soups for children, you can download it in the link. What I'll cover is an introduction to TCM and how it applies to soups and foods, some very basic soup design principles for children, some of the key ingredients that you can use based on these design principles, recipes and a buildup of recipes where you can mix and match what's best for you and your family, my lessons learned, and my favorite is the food tracking template. It was really important for me as a parent to know what was I introducing one at a time and what was their reactions to it and how I made it. You can capture this in a really simple way that doesn't take a lot of resources, time, and effort. I'll keep this in my kitchen and just fill it out as I'm creating recipes and dishes that are new to my child. Happy soup and tea making for our families, and I'll see you next time.